എൻ്റെ അഭിപ്രായത്തിൽ ഈ ഒരു എക്സ്പീരിയൻസ് എന്നുള്ളത് ഫസ്റ്റ് ഇയർ തൊട്ട് ബിൽഡ് ചെയ്യേണ്ടതാണ്. കാരണം ബിഫോർ hitting the textbooks, they should have a feel of the subject.
Yeah, sure.
എങ്ങോട്ടാണ് കാര്യങ്ങൾ, in which direction things are heading.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
then
You're right.
then students would be more prepared. See, when I joined college, my dad is a civil engineer basically. So I
Okay.
grew up looking up at him.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I was thinking like, from the day you join the engineering college, it's all going to be fun, engineering, creativity, because he enjoys his work a lot. അപ്പൊ അങ്ങനെ കണ്ടിട്ടാണ് ഞാൻ വളർന്നത്. പക്ഷെ അതിനുശേഷം കോളേജിൽ ജോയിൻ ചെയ്തപ്പോൾ I was so disappointed, so fed up because all the assignments, exams, internals, externals, എനിക്ക് ആ സിസ്റ്റമായിട്ട് അഡാപ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ കുറച്ച് ടൈം എടുത്തു.
Yeah. Okay. So now, I think now this is a transition stage. Definitely, this is transition stage. I think, right?
Transition stage for.
So conventional system.
Me or the students?
See.
Definitely. Yes.
So there are two eras. That is before Corona and after Corona.
Yes.
So that's why. So no, before that, 1 year before, we are actually thinking to bring a industrialist to our college. അല്ലേ? പക്ഷെ ഇപ്പോഴത്തെ കണ്ടീഷൻ എന്താണ്? ഇപ്പോ നമുക്ക് ആരെ വേണമെങ്കിലും നമുക്ക് ഇതാ ലൈവില് റിയൽ ഫീല് കിട്ടുന്ന രീതിയിൽ നമുക്ക് എത്താൻ പറ്റും. ശരിയല്ലേ? അപ്പൊ അതൊക്കെ ഒത്തിരി പോസിറ്റീവായിട്ട് നമുക്ക് വരുന്നുണ്ട് ഇപ്പോഴത്തെ ഈ ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് ആഫ്റ്റർ കൊറോണ എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരു ട്രാൻസിഷൻ. നമ്മൾ ഓൺലൈൻ മീഡിയത്തിലേക്ക് കൂടുതലായിട്ട് വരുന്നുണ്ട്. അതിന്റെ അഡ്വാൻറ്റേജ് ഒത്തിരി വരുന്നുണ്ട് നമുക്ക്. ഡെഫിനറ്റ്ലി അത് എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു ഇത് സ്റ്റുഡൻസിന് ഒത്തിരി എഫക്റ്റീവ് ആയിരിക്കും. ഞങ്ങളിപ്പോൾ ഈ ചെയ്യുന്നതെല്ലാം നമ്മൾ യൂട്യൂബിൽ ലൈവായിട്ട് പോകുന്നുണ്ട്. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ യൂട്യൂബിൽ നമ്മൾ നമ്മുടെ ലിങ്ക് ഓൾറെഡി ഉണ്ടാവും. അത് ആർക്ക് വേണമെങ്കിലും എപ്പോൾ വേണമെങ്കിലും വ്യൂ ചെയ്യാം.
ഞാൻ കണ്ടിരുന്നു ഞാൻ കഴിഞ്ഞ കുറച്ച് just to get a feel of what is going to happen. ഞാനൊന്ന് നോക്കിയിരുന്നു and it's pretty good actually. എല്ലാവരും ടോപ്പിക്. അപ്പൊ ശരിക്കും പറഞ്ഞാൽ അത് കണ്ടപ്പോ തന്നെ ഞാൻ മനസ്സിൽ പ്ലാൻ ചെയ്തതിൽ നിന്നും ഒരുപാട് ചേഞ്ച് ചെയ്യേണ്ടി വന്നു. പെർഫോമൻസ് ലെവൽ എക്സ്പെക്ടേഷൻസ് went really high. ഇന്ന് ഇപ്പൊ മാഡം പറഞ്ഞു, അതായത് even students from IIT join ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്. So basically പലതരത്തിലും പല ഫിലിപ്പീൻസ് പല നാട്ടിൽ നിന്ന് ആൾക്കാർ join ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, sir. Shall we start?
Okay.
Yeah. A very good morning to one and all. Sorry, it's afternoon. A very good afternoon to one and all, and welcome you all to the international webinar series conducted by Mechanical Engineering Department of Universal Engineering College on the topic Essential Technologies and Career Opportunities in Mechanical Engineering. Today, as the chief guest of the day, we have Mr. Gokul Thandiakkal, Senior Planning Engineer, A to Z Architectural Engineering Consultancy, UAE. Before we hand over to the speaker, let's officially welcome our chief guest. Over to you, Principal.
Yeah, good afternoon. So, good afternoon, Mr. Gokul.
Good afternoon, sir.
I'm very happy that Mr. Gokul is associating with us for this webinar. I'm very proud to say that Department of Mechanical Engineering is organized a program that is for the 1 week program, and this is the last session of this program, and lot of people enjoyed. The total registration crosses more than 600, and the participants are from various countries, not only from Kerala, it's also from other states of India as well as abroad. So today the topic is project management and contracts administration. I'm sure that this will give a clear picture about the project management. That is, you'll get the real experience from Mr. Gokul. And thank you, Gokul, for your valuable time with us. And I wish all success to this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joseph. Before we go over to our speaker, let me give you all a brief introduction about our speaker. Mr. Gokul Thandiakkal is an alumnus of Government Engineering College in Civil Engineering Department, and he's also currently pursuing his Masters in Global BIM Management from University of Barcelona. He currently works as the A to Z architectural engineering consultancies. He works as senior planning engineer there. He has also worked as planning engineer at the Mace Contractors, ALSA Engineering and Contracting Company, UIT Group, and Mochil. Over to you, sir. We welcome you once again on behalf of the Mechanical Engineering Department and Universal Engineering College.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, sir. Thank you for this wonderful introduction. It's a privilege to be here, to be talking to you, all of you, and to be introducing to you the concepts of project management and contracts administration. So I would like to know how good are you able to view my screen? Going to the full screen mode.
Yes, okay. I
this,
cannot see your presentation so far.
You can't see my presentation. Okay. What about now?
Yes, it's just loading. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
We'll start.
Okay.
Yeah, it is now visible. Yeah.
Okay, great. So, yeah. So, what I would say before going into the details of this topics is there. One second, the slides. I really want to express my gratitude for this opportunity given to me. See, it is an opportunity for me as a professional as such, because it gets into it gives me a chance to interact with people, to share my knowledge, and most importantly, when I'm preparing for such a presentation, it gives me a chance to look into the blind spots within my own experience and my own technical know-how. So while I'm preparing, I must really admit, while I was preparing for this presentation, I did learn a lot of things which I thought wasn't so important, because the whole point of this presentation was to compress a lot of data, a lot of knowledge into a span of 1.5 hours. And I really must admit, it's impossible to teach you the full span and width of project management, either project management or contracts administration, in this time, because it's a huge area. It's the vastness of the scope is much more than you can really fathom at this point. See, normally contracts administration is said to be an industry within an industry, because you see, civil engineer or construction as such is an industry. Contracts administration is a very complex procedure that is embedded within this whole industry. So you have to have special set of knowledge, special skill set to be practicing with contracts. But yes, my priority or our priority at this point is to know where everyone stands here as a student, and how you can step into the worlds of project management and contracts administration. Okay. Now, there is a lot of things, there are a lot of things omitted on purpose, because to compress, I was trying to prioritize what would be most important for you, what would be most beneficial for you, if I'm to be mentioned within the span of 90 minutes. Okay, and of course there are some definitions. There is a lot of data, and I have tweaked them to be made more presentable. When you start studying things, you might find it a little bit different from what I mentioned here, but that's okay. It is not going to stop you from functioning with, you'll basically get all the building blocks to start functioning or start learning stuff. Okay, I don't expect you to be a project management professional or contracts administration professional right after I finish the presentation. What is expected out of the presentation is you learn stuff, you understand what is the process, and you have a picture, you have a macroscopic or a macroscopic view of what is happening, and then you start building on things one by one. And yes, of course, again, I have explained things in a non-linear fashion. I tried to maintain the linearity as much as possible, but it is still non-linear. It goes back and forth. But in the end of in the end of the session, I hope you can see everything falls in place just like a jigsaw puzzle. And yes, since I'm a planning engineer, this whole session is from a planning engineer's perspective. You see, there are different perspectives to the project. A planning engineer's perspective is different from a commercial engineer's or quantity service perspective. That is different from a quality control engineer's perspective. That is different from a resident engineer's perspective. That is different from a project manager's perspective. Now, starting from the project management perspective at this point is not so beneficial, because my understanding is, if you understand the whole process as such in a simple format, if you finish, if you get one full pass through the whole process, and then you will be able to assimilate the data later on. It's just like functioning with Google Maps. You see, when you use Google Maps, you have all sort of indications, the directions, the time calculations, and stuff, right? So before the detailed calculations are displayed, it'll show you the route, and you can select the route at which you can reach the destination. Okay, so you can tell this process is meant to show you different routes. That's it. And yes, as I mentioned before, the take home for you today as students is a perspective on how to work your way upwards in this industry. And then the interrelations. See, project management and contracts management, contracts administration are two different streams which are related, which coalesce, which interface at a lot of points, but they are different. Okay, but their interrelations, understanding the interrelations is very beneficial to get into the subject, and to understand the subject, to learn the subject. And finally, of course, a lot of practical ideas. That is the, what is that? If you're seeing Apple presentations, they'll be showing one last thing. Yeah, this is the one last thing for you, which I've kept at the end of the session. Okay, so before we start, I'm going to request you to forget your respective trades for the time being. You see, now this might come as a bit painful for you, because while being in college, all the students, it's, even I've done that. We wear our department like a suit of armor, like a badge, like a suit of armor, because we want to be represented as a civil engineer, or we want to project ourselves as a civil engineer or mechanical engineer into the world. But what we forget is we have to be an engineer first. Now, the common mistake that happens when we get stuck with that idea of being an engineer of a particular trade is it weighs us down. It totally weighs us down, to an extent that we miss out on a lot of opportunities. You see, if I'm just being a civil engineer, I'm just focused on the civil engineering aspect of a project, and I'm totally ignoring what is the project as a whole. Then yeah, I'll be trying to specialize on my civil engineering knowledge and stuff. But what happens is, you see, in the grand scheme of things, you'll become a specialist, but you will not be able to interact with the team. And unless you know where you stand in the project, you're useless. You can get a degree, you can get a master's degree in civil engineering, but how to use it is the most important question we all have to start asking ourselves. Your trade is just a choice of a weapon. It's like if you compare life to a battleground, your trade is just a weapon, whether you use a sword or whether you use a bow and arrow. It really doesn't matter. If you're a master of it, if you can masterfully use it according to the situation, well and good. But it's better if you can use one or two weapons, because suppose you lose one thing and you have a basic understanding of another kind of weapon, you can use that in the battlefield. And I'll tell you, project is a real war front. So today, you're just an engineer evaluating your options ahead. You are not a mechanical engineer, you're not a civil engineer, you're not an engineer from any form of trade. See, because project management applies not just to civil or mechanical engineering streams. Project management applies to all stream of projects, be it electrical, mechanical, computer science. If there is a project, you can apply project management knowledge and ideas. So today's topic will have two different parts. One, as said before, project management and contractor administration. We'll go ahead with the project management first. Now, what is project management? I'm going to skip what the definition of what is a project, uh, because I'll tell you later. We'll start with we can't go start from that scratch of a thing. We have to start somewhere. So we'll I hope you can see this. Yeah. So project management is the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project activities to meet the project requirements. Okay, so that is the theory part. Now, why did I go to Project Management Institute? Project Management Institute is a non-profitable organization that has studied projects from all through the entire spectrum of engineering. Okay, and not just engineering. If you have an activity that has, if you have a process that has a start and finish point, and that requires time, that requires effort, that can be classified as a project. This is not a definition. This is just to give you an understanding. So, Project Management Institute has studied projects from all walks of life. Okay, be it from building a small house to multi-billion-dollar intercontinental ballistic missile programs, or launching rockets, satellites into the outer atmosphere. They're all projects. Okay, sometimes project gets too big that they get classified as programs. Okay, but again, the whole point is, having studied all these projects through the entire spectrum of engineering, you get an idea about how to start, how to manage, how the process develops, and how to complete it successfully. And that is the intention of this institute. And now PMI, I really suggest you guys have a look into the website of PMI, because they provide a lot of certifications. And as a student, it is best if you can get a CAPM, which is Certified Associate in Project Management. Now, the advantage of that is, if you see, you come right after you finish engineering, you finish an academic program, but how does a project management happens in real life? And if you're getting certified from an institute like that, the advantage is you get a clear picture of what things are, and there is a professional body certifying your knowledge on this. Just like you get an engineering degree, you get a specific professional degree. It's not a degree, professional certification that can be highlighted in your CV, so that so that people know that you have some basic fundamental know-how of how projects are and how projects are supposed to happen. Now, before going to details of project, again, I would like to highlight the advantages of being a project manager. You see, or let's say, yeah, the benefits and perks, the kind of salary expectations. See, basically, I talk from the AEC industry right now. AEC stands for Architecture, Engineering, and Construction. Mechanical engineering guys, don't feel bad because mechanical is a part of this AEC industry at not many points. But this industry as such, mostly, if I'll be talking about civil engineering projects like building construction, hospital construction and stuff. But there is a mechanical engineer, a mechanical project manager from a subcontractor. That will be the MEP subcontractor in the major civil engineering project coming up. So don't worry about that. And then I'll be comparing with EPC. See, I've also worked in the oil and gas sector. So I know how a project happens in the EPC environment, right? So, but predominantly this discussion will be based on AEC. Just giving a heads up. The benefits and perks, salary expectations can be something upwards of 30,000 dirhams a month, which is roughly 6 lakh rupees. Okay. And the perks, there are a lot of perks, and we can discuss that on a later front. But one thing I would like to highlight is, you see, when you're a project manager, you are the expert, you are the decision-making authority in that project. You're the license officer. So if a material has to be inspected, suppose in the let's speak about oil and gas industry in this context. Suppose you're building a pressure reduction skid, or let's say, yeah, skid, or your manufacturer, there's a valve that has to be installed in your pipeline, right? So this valve, as per the client, there will be a list of contractors, there will be a list of valves that would be applicable to that project. That's called pre-qualification. So you have to select a supplier who has been pre-qualified, and this valve would be manufactured somewhere else across the globe. It could be Italy, it could be Germany, it could be UK. You don't know. Only when the project happens, you decide where to get that valve. Okay. Now, as a project manager, you have to go and inspect this valve. You can send a quality personnel, not a problem, but the responsibility is still of the project manager. Project manager sends a person in his stead to go and inspect the valve. Now, you get an opportunity to go out of station and inspect the valve at the let's say at the expense of your own company. Okay, so that is something which I really want to highlight. You can't normally, when you think of a project, you think that people are confined to an area, a region, a country. No, if you're a project manager, you will get chances to travel across the world. Now, this should come as a real perk. Salary part, you can leave it. See, basically, manager, if in this part of the world, if there is a designation as manager, your salary will be upwards of 30,000 dirhams, which is close to 6 lakh rupees, I mentioned. And there's a spectrum that is loosely followed. If your entry level is as an engineer is 2,500 to 3,000 dirhams to 10, and then a normal engineer is 10 to 20. I'm speaking in dirhams, of course, 10 to 20,000 dirhams. Okay, and a senior engineer is like 20 to 30,000 dirhams. That is a scale that has been followed. So project manager starts at 30, and there is no upper limit normally. I mean, yeah, of course, there is a limit. You cannot be more than senior management. But you see, it all depends on your ability to negotiate with your company, and also your ability to bring about value in that project. If the total project value is only 2 million or 3 million dirhams, you cannot definitely ask for 100,000 dirhams a month. Okay, so let's keep that bracket between 30,000 dirhams to 60,000 dirhams. 60,000 dirhams is 12 lakh rupees, roughly 12 lakh rupees a month. Now, the qualifications. Now, this is the really important thing. You see, qualification wise, if you have a degree, you can start as an engineer here in this part of the world. But the most important qualification you need is a PhD in smartness. There is no denying that. You need to have a PhD in smartness. You need to be at that level of smart. You have to control the project in such a manner that it brings about the best of the results. Everyone looks up to you for suggestions, directions, for solutions, answers. you will have a lot to face as a project manager, but you start small, and it takes normally 10 to 15 years to reach to the level of a project manager. If you're really smart, super duper smart, you can be a project manager at 8 or 10 years of experience. But you have to have that good an experience, that good a CV, and you have to land in such a good project right from the start. Okay. Otherwise, it takes at least 2 to 3 years figuring out how things happen in a project. Now, this kind of sessions, how helps you is it gives you an idea how things are supposed to happen. So it flattens that learning curve a lot. Okay, and qualification. Otherwise, of course, it is always an added advantage to have professional certifications like a membership and Chartered Institute of Building, and a PMP. Of course, PMP is provided by the Project Management Institute. That definitely adds a lot of knowledge, value to the knowledge you have. But it all depends on how you utilize it. Okay, so a degree, a master's degree, is not much of a use as long as you don't know how to use it. And that is specifically comes into play when you're a contractor. But yes, of course, if it's a specialist area of expertise, specialist area which you're working, then um, having some specialist master's degree helps. Okay, and but when you're consultant now, this three category of people that they make up the entire project, major chunk of the project. Then of course you got subcontractors, end users and stuff. But in a contract, these are the three people coming into play. Now you start off as a contractor, then you become a consultant when you have enough experience, and then finally you work at the client level. Now, of course, there will be exceptions. You can start with the consultant level if you have the sufficient knowledge, sufficient expertise. Not a problem with that. You can even start direct as a consultant. But normally, this is how the career progresses. You start as a contractor, become a consultant, and client. But yes, of course, the pay in contractor is more. You become definitely more. There are many reasons, but we'll keep that discussion to a later point. And skills, yes, the skill set required to become a project manager, you have to be a jack of all trades. That is what I meant by JOAT. Pardon me, that's a made-up name, but that serves a purpose. You have to be a jack of all trades. You need to know everything. Now you'll come to see that in the later slide. Interpersonal skills, how you deal with people, paramount. Negotiation skills, you cannot survive without negotiation skills. And finally, it all all the skills are project dependent, because if it's a small project where your technical knowledge is required more, then you can compromise a lot on this. But most of the projects, what I'm saying, I'm speaking about projects like having an entire township being developed, or a mixed use development that is worth 1 billion dirhams, which I've worked right now, which I'm working right now. 1 billion dirhams, which is like 20,000 rupees. 20,000 crore rupees. Okay, so that kind of a project, you cannot manage everything without these skills as a basic minimum. Now, in this slide, we are getting directly into the project. Okay, now as per PMI, you have, whoa, one second. Okay, this is how a project normally develops. We have 5 process groups, okay, and 10 knowledge areas. 5 process groups simply means the 5 phases of development of a project. Okay. You have an initiation phase, then you have planning and design phase, and as the arrow indicates, initiation starts everything. The project managers are brought into the project, and there are project charters being developed, and the project manager budgeting. Sorry, that comes in planning and design. Sorry. So that is, you start with the project from a business case. Okay, so that is the initiation part. Now, business case means, suppose you have an area. Oh, by the way, I have actually prepared a sample project for you, which we'll see in the later slides. You have a big area where you don't have any hospitals. Okay, so you represent a company which decides that, okay, if we build a hospital here, specialty hospital here, then we could actually gain a lot of money from it. There'll be a lot of benefit financially, and that will be a big, but much better than that, there'll be a big service to the people there, because people don't have to travel long distances to go to the hospital. So that is a business case. That's a viable business case. So from that business case, initiates the project. Okay. So initiation gives to planning and design. That names explains it all. Let's not go into much details here. Just understand the name here, planning and design. From planning and design, once the planning and design is completed, we go into execution. Okay. Now there's an arrow here that indicates it goes into execution, but there is a backward arrow here which indicates that from the execution, something is fed back into planning design, and that is nothing but the reports. Now these arrows here, see, from execution, there are reports and data that is fed into a planning stage and monitoring and control stage, which follows the execution stage. Now this indicates there is data transfer. Now monitoring and control decides if whether the project is as per the plan or not. Okay, so there's a communication between these two. There's a communication between these two. Okay, and just to check whether you are on track or not. On track based on a lot of parameters: time, cost, quality, expectations, stakeholder expectations, stuff. And finally, once all the project parameters are satisfied, okay, preset project parameters are satisfied, then you go for closing a project. So that is how a project develops. Now, what you see here is an expansion in that into a matrix. These are the 5 phases of development of a project. Now, this is taken directly from a PMI's material, because this gives an idea about how you should start, or what are the minimum things you should understand to start functioning in a project in a responsible position. Okay, so 5 phases of project development and the 10 knowledge areas, essential, inevitable knowledge areas. You need to know how a project starts. That's what meant by the integration management. How the project starts and how the things are supposed to be. In what direction things are supposed to start. That is integration management. How you integrate different components together. Okay, but just before that, let me just talk about this graph here. Okay, so I think you're familiar with the color coding here. Now this is the time axis. This is the effort required. Now the first initiating part, you start from 0. Okay, that is again integration management. Initiation, and then peaks at a point and then goes down to an asymptotic level, or sometimes even 0. The effort required in its initiation is the most in the beginning, and slowly after that, planning takes over, and then the full effort is on planning and design. Okay, and soon after planning and design, monitoring and controlling takes over. See, but monitoring and controlling is not as active as a planning process, because you have a time to plan for, you have cost to plan for, you have quality to plan for, you have communications to plan for. Planning, you just look at this. See, planning has the maximum effort in this matrix. Planning and design. Sorry about that. And then execution starts from somewhere here. Execution has the maximum effort. No matter how much effort you put in planning, unless you execute, there is nothing happening in the project. So you start execution, and then there's a lot of effort in executing the project. Okay, and then finally the closing part, which happens after the planning and design comes to a halt. And through the whole process, we have monitoring and controlling. Okay, so that's how a project develops. And with this metrics, I can explain it still further. You have 10 areas where you have to have specific knowledge. Scope, how do you manage the scope of the project? What is to be done in the project, and how do you plan to manage that? How do you plan to execute that scope? Okay. And then schedule management means how do you plan for the time factor within the project? Cost management. You see, there is a cost element involved to the project, and how do you manage the project in such a way that it doesn't overrun the cost allocations? And then quality. What are the quality metrics? How do you say that the project is complete, or different phases of project is complete? And what are the expectations of each phase? That is quality. And resource management, basically the team involved within the project. How do you build a team? How do you acquire a team? How do you build a team? How do you manage them? See, these are the things a project manager should know to run a project. Okay. And then resource management, communications management. What are the different kind of information that goes up and down within a project? What is the basic information required for a person? And what is the mode in which it should be transmitted? Because sometimes official transmission, official data cannot be transmitted through phone calls or WhatsApp messages. You have to write a proper letter, okay, so that things are clear on both sides and there is a record, right? But some people just require verbal updates. So who are those people? Now that is managed in stakeholder management. What are the people? What are the expectations? And based on that, you assess their communication requirements, data requirements, and you plan for communications management. Risk management. What? See, a project could go wrong in n number of ways, right from the even before you start. So once you have this the project schedule and project cost values and all, you plan the risk into, you assess the risk conditions of each activity, and then you plan risk responses and mitigation measures. Sometimes if you cannot avoid, you plan for mitigation measures. Sometimes if you can avoid, you plan for the risk, and when you reach that point, you do that particular activity of risk management. Now this is all theory. We'll get into the practical part later on. Just bear with me. Procurement management, how things, see, contracts management comes actually as part of procurement management. How to start things, how to close. That's it. Now, for our sake of discussion, I would be using this table. Okay, this is how normally a project develops. This is the start point, and this is the finish point. Now, especially in the AEC industry, this is how the project develops. First, a client has a requirement at this point, right? And discusses that with architects and designers, and comes up with a concept design. Now, once the concept design is approved, a detailed design development happens. Okay, and this point, once a detailed design is finalized, it's approved, then the construction phase starts. Now, construction phase. And then we have the closeout period. Okay. As you can see, this is the 5 process groups listed out just for the sake of comparison. Monitoring and controlling is part of implementation. Now, yeah, with the next slide, you'll be able to understand it more about the difference between AEC and EPC. This is the AEC industry. You see, there are different people involved within a project, as I mentioned earlier. Now, 3 most important people coming within the project are the employer, the engineer, the contractor. Now, why did I emphasize on that? See, this has got the letter D has got the word "the" has got a significance, because when you add "the" to an employer, it becomes a contractually defined item, contractually defined party. A contractually it has got a contractual definition. So the employer means a party coming into contract with the contractor. Okay, so when you mention the contractor, there is only one contractor, the contractually obliged party. The employer, the contractually obliged party. Now there are rules and responsibilities assigned to this person. It's like a tag. Okay, and there are rules and responsibilities assigned to the contractor, and these 2 people come into contract. Now the engineer is also part of the contract in a different way. You'll see that later. So now the engineer is actually a broad term because this consists. Now, engineer, when I say engineer, the there are consultancies, engineering consultancies that provide services, a lot of services, the design, then supervision, project management. Okay, so in the project, the role of the engineer is to see that the project is as per the contract. See, in one word, the engineer is the referee between these two people. I shouldn't be saying this, but just for the sake of understanding, when a referee of the match of the whole project, the engineer, right? Okay, the contractor comes into play at this point where the development phase is over. Now, because at this point, the construction contract is provided to the contractor, or the employer enters into a construction contract at this point. You see this yellow line. At this point, the employer enters into a consultancy contract with the engineer. That is the difference between these two. Okay. Now, when we talk about construction or contracts management as such, what is to be kept in mind is the contract between the employer and the contractor and the construction contract, because the consultancy contract is not that much of a significance at this point. But yes, from the project management perspective and the BIM, building information modeling perspective, yes, it is. Okay, but we'll be discussing more on the the contract that enters, the contract that between the employer and the contractor. Now there is a difference between AEC industry and oil and gas industry. You see, the process is still the same, but the architecture development that happened in the AEC industry is called FEED, front-end engineering design, in the EPC environment, and you have FEED consultants. Okay, so what the architect and the designers did here, the FEED consultants do here. Okay, and then in EPC environment, in the oil and gas, EPC means engineering, procurement, construction. Okay, oil and gas projects are normally called EPC projects. So in the EPC environment, normally FIDIC projects are not used in my experience. There are definitely FIDIC contract forms that applies, but since the governments and government bodies are involved, they prefer to use bespoke or custom contracts. So these terms, the client or the engineer, the employer, the engineer, the contractor words doesn't apply here, right? Okay, so we'll start with the concept design and detailed design. I'll show you the what is it? One second. Okay, I'll show you the chart, what is organization chart of our sample organization chart, which we have in my company, just to give you a feel of how the concept design happens. Concept design and detailed design. Okay, so a project. Now we mentioned that suppose you want to construct a hospital. Now the project director and the planning and coordinations manager have holds discussions with the client to understand the client requirements, right? Now from the client requirements, they list out the client requirements. What is the budget? What is the what are the facilities to be provided? How do we what is the facilities that are already there, the plot, the size of the plot, what are the amenities that the client can afford, all the stuff. So a lot of discussions happen to finalize the requirements of the project. Okay, and this requirement is fed into the company atmosphere, that is the architectural department, structural department, MEP department, medical engineering team, and the interior design team. And they initially come up with a concept that they believe is feasible. Now they can have actually a lot of concepts just to give the employer or the client a lot of options. Okay, but finally this process is not a long one. This is only to check what is the optimum solution as per the client requirements, right? Now after the concept stage, starts the detailed design development. Now, in this detailed design development, the architectural team takes the approved concept design, okay, and they develop the detailed architecture of the building, the complete look and feel of the building, of the structure, whatever it is, hospital. Now, once they have done with the architectural part, they hand it over to the MEP team. Sorry, my mistake. They hand it over to the structural team to check for the structural viability of the of the architecture, and then this structural team hands it over to the MEP team. Right, the MEP team designs for the mechanical and electrical components of the project, the HVAC system, uh, and what is it? All the electrical components, the power requirements, all the load calculations. They do it, and they have their design, and then they hand it to the medical engineering team, and medical engineering team hands it over the interior team, and it goes in a loop. Okay, now by a loop, what I mean is after the architectural team hands it over to structural team checks for structural integrity of the design, and then comes up with a lot of comments, like suggestions to improve, to or to change, say that okay, this is not as per the regulations, authority regulations, this will not get approved, this has to be changed. So there is a stage which is called IDC, interdisciplinary check. Okay, and this comments is forwarded back to architectural team, and then they complete the what is it, they finish the comments, or they revise the project, revise the data as per the comments, sends it back to the structural team. The structural team then does the same project, the same process with the MEP, medical engineering, interior, and finally they all come to an agreement, which becomes the final design. Now this final design is sent for authority approvals, because you cannot construct a project just like that. You need authority approvals to start with all the processes at site. Now, the people in this team are well aware of what are the authority requirements. So it is not just technical know-how. They need to know the law that prevails in designing each and every component. And these people will also be approved by most of the people, especially structural MEP people will be approved by the, ideally they should be approved by the authorities, so that authorities know. They give an examination in this with the concerning authority, and then once they clear, the authorities know that okay, they have some minimum understanding of the rules and regulations. They are fit to start designing. Now, our role is not in designing. Our scope of discussions today is about project management. Now, the project management team is a bit different from the design team. You see, we had a structural design team here, but when it comes to project management, we have a civil supervision department, and the most senior person of the civil supervision department is called a resident engineer. Right. Otherwise, the person in the architectural department is called resident architect. This I'm talking from the consultant point of view. So this is the team that manages the project right from the contract is signed. Okay, so this is the supervision consultant team. You have a mechanical engineering team, you have a commercial contracts team, planning team, and documentation department. Now, what these people do is, you see, they verify the work at site. If the work done at site is as per the initial design or not. Now, just to give you a feel of the contractors team, I have included an organization chart of the contractor. Now, this is the project manager of the contractor, and this is his whole team. This is a sample representation. Project manager will have a very strong construction team comprising of construction managers, site engineers, project engineers, yeah. And then you have, commercial department. See, these gray colored items are all, what is it? Corporate level teams, and this is a blue color is a project team. So there will be a corporate level supporting the project manager, and they'll be sending their people to, let's say, support the project manager. You have a QS coming from the commercial team. You have a QA/QC, quality control, quality assessment, quality control engineer from the quality department, cost control engineer, safety engineer, planning engineer, coordinations engineer, design team, etc. Now, the role of each engineer, see, quality, commercial part, sorry, we'll start with the commercial part. They check if the project is billed on time. The work done is approved, and then that approval can be converted into money, monetary terms. They are what is it? They are in charge of the billing of the project. Okay, how they invoice the project from the contractor's side. Quality department. Now, the quality department, they propose in the initial phase of the project, they propose the quality standards that will be complied to within the project. So they have to prepare a project quality management plan, and then they also prepare all the method statements. But yeah, that is shared between quality department and the project engineer. But they make sure that the project is as per the required quality specifications of the project. Okay, and then you have this contractor is particularly smart because he has a separate cost control department. Now there are engineers just to control cost of the project. What happens is there's a commercial team here, list of quantity surveys under the commercial department, but their priority will be to bill invoice as per the progress. Now there is a person here sitting just to see, just for cost savings, just to optimize the expenditure within the project from the contractor side. Okay, and then you have a safety engineer, a very important role, because safety engineer makes sure that whatever is done at the site and in the whatever done at site and also the laydown area, or the project office area, is safe. Okay, so all the activities, safety, this person is responsible for the safety of the entire project, right? So he has to devise plans so that people are safe, there are no accidents, there is no LTIs, lost time incidents, right? So these people, this person is responsible for the safety of all the people at site, and he has sometimes the power to stop the works at site if he finds something that is unsafe. He's also responsible on a great scale. If something goes wrong, this person will be held responsible for that mistake, because it would be his short sight that would have caused this on the first place. But then you can always be safe. There are projects with millions and millions of man hours without any incidents, because that much effort is put into the safety aspect. The risk part is a lot of risk is handled by this person. Now, why I'm focusing a little bit on this safety engineer is because, you see, only if you're an engineer, only if you know the process properly, you can improve the whole process from the safety standpoint. Okay, so this is a very good career option you should actually look into. And of course, the planning engineer, yes, the timekeeper, or let's say the person who controls the time element of the whole project. What are the works to be done, when things are supposed to be completed, and what are the delayed items, when can we complete, what is the remaining time. Basically, you know, the watch of the project. Okay, so that should give you a brief idea. Now, after college, you will be starting off as a site engineer. Okay, definitely not a farmer. You'll be starting as a site engineer. And then you have to work your way up. From here, you can see a lot of branches. You can become a project engineer or a construction manager. But yeah, you won't directly become a construction manager overnight. It takes some experience too, because, as I said, a manager position, because manager position requires a lot of knowledge and skill set. You need to have the entire construction site at your control. So if you compare this to a kingdom, project manager is the king and the construction manager is the general. Okay, and of course I would like to I would like to picture myself as a minister, the planning engineer. Just, you know, pun intended. Now these are, next we'll see the triple constraints of the project. Now, how to complete a project ideally and how to bring about the most optimum results. There are a lot of constraints, a lot of, if you list out the constraints, all the 10 items, the 10 knowledge areas shown before are constraints. But the key, the most important things would be, normally people be focusing on time, cost, and quality. And there has to be balance between these three. And this is the sweet spot, the optimum point. Let's say if things are done really fast, okay, it becomes more expensive. If you want to improve the time of the project, you have to put in a lot of resources. You have to go for some expensive processes which you hadn't planned earlier. It becomes really expensive. But if you try to reduce the time, yes, it becomes cheap. But sometimes it goes low on quality. Okay, and quality, if you want to if you want to have high quality, again it becomes expensive. If you want to reduce the cost, yes, quality will be compromised. So there is a balancing point. This area, sweet spot. Okay, basically what I'm trying to say is the project manager juggles between these three and has to prioritize each activity so that uh, the project is benefited the most as, from his decision. Now, in this discussion, we are going to see from the time point of view, because as I said before, when you know what are the things that those are supposed to happen, you're in a better position to control it. Okay. Uh, you see, now I assume that you are in your final year of engineering. Before starting your BTech, you would have been in a very difficult position. Like, you would be really, would have been overwhelmed about the quantum of works that lied ahead, that, that was ahead of you. Okay. Not lied, that lay ahead of you. But then, now that you're completing your BTech, it somehow feels easy. Of course, it's an understatement if I say that it was easy. You'd have gone through a lot of struggles. I personally had gone through a hell lot of struggles just to complete my BTech. So I would definitely understand if you would also have gone through a lot of struggle, yeah, be it personal, be it academic, a lot of financial, a lot of stuff. But then once you finish the process, you understand, okay, how the process should have been, how you could have improved. That comes from an experience. Okay, so knowing what things are, expecting what to happen gives you an edge on how to control things. That is my point, which is why we are focusing our discussions today on time. Now, I would like to show you a small design phase schedule just to give you uh, a feel of the project. I made a sample schedule just for your understanding. Now, this software is called Primavera, which is what we use here to manage the project. It's just a tool used for project management. It is, basically the skills it really doesn't replace any of your skills required to manage a project. Okay, so first one, okay, this part is called the activity detail window. So this whole thing is called activity window. This, what you see here is the breakdown of the project into different work breakdown structures. I'll explain that later. This you see is a time schedule or time chart or Gantt chart. Okay, and you can see the months being shown here. Now, what happens is when you add an activity, when you add a work package here, there is a time associated to it at which it is supposed to be completed. So
Excuse
that's
me,
how.
sir.
Yep.
Are you? We can only see black background. Are you discussing something else?
I kind of
You
switched
share
the.
something. Okay.
I kind of switched the screen, not screen, the window.
But I still see the schedule 1 design phase Primavera schedule.
Okay, wait, let me do it again.
Okay.
Can you see it now?
Yes, we can see it now. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, so I think I'll have to start again. This is the activity. This is basically how you control a project is you have some details here. You have a time frame here. Maybe you can see it. time frame here. Okay, and when you add an activity, you are associating you're booking a time frame to that activity. This activity should happen between this time and this time. And how you can arrive at that conclusion is you list out a lot of activities, understand their interdependencies, and link them together. Maybe you can see these links. Okay, so when you link these things together, it'll give you a chart or a sequence of activities, and the software calculates on itself how the activities are supposed to be linked to each other, and positions the activities with the relative correspondence. What is it? Relative dependencies. So I made a list of activities and linked them together to get you feel about the concept design. Let's say you want to sign a contract today, okay? And it takes 30 days to develop the concept design. I've linked this after this. It's called a finish to start link. This finishes and this starts. First activity finishes, second activity starts. So second activity starts after the first activity and it takes 30 days. And after that, we have another activity called workshop for concept design with the employer. Now, this has a different kind of link, okay? Because your concept design development is not completed till you discuss it with the employer and get his approval, okay? So what you do, yeah. So what you do is there is a different kind of link that is associated to it that is called finish to finish. When this finish, this should have been finished earlier, or the finish point of this activity is controlled by the finish of this activity. So that's how you link activities together. Now, just to give you a feel, okay, it's a vast topic in itself, but just to give you a feel, this is how you list out the activities, understand their relative positioning and dependencies, link them together, and a chart, a sequence is developed. Okay, and it is red in color because it's in the critical path. We have a straight sequence, a fairly linear program here. It's all in the critical path. Now, critical path discussion is a critical path is something which impacts the project duration completely. If you change the duration of one activity in the critical path, the project duration changes. Normally, project duration is controlled by the contract, so you cannot change the project duration. What you'll have to do is, if some activity is delayed here, you will have to mitigate somewhere else. Okay, suppose this instead of this becomes 35. Okay, then the revision, you have to take that duration out from this 5 days, so that the end point is the same. This is not how you do it actually at site or in a project, but just to give you a feel, because there's a lot of procedure involved to change even the duration. Okay, so what you see here, I have split the entire project into two stages: stage one design and stage two construction. Now, normally it is a consultant who develops. Miss, how much time do I have left?
Yes, you have half an hour more as per the schedule. Yeah.
Okay, great. So this, yeah, the stage one design. Stage one design is what, as I said, done by the architects or the designers. Okay. As a planning engineer, what I do is I plan for the activities expected within the stage one design, and I see whether it is as per the contract between the consultant and the employer. Because within the contract, the time frame would have been mentioned. So I try to discuss with the team to control this. Okay, that is first the concept design, then the final design, and then it goes for tendering. After tendering, after the end of tendering is marked by the completion of the first phase, or normally we mention it as pre-contracts phase, where the contract is awarded to the contractor. the construction contractor, and then the stage 2 starts the construction. This is typical of an AEC industry project. But sometimes even in AEC industry, we have turnkey projects where the complete engineering design, the design is done by the contractor. It is called design and build contracts. Now we'll leave that to a different topic. We'll leave that discussion to a different session. So construction, I have just mentioned a duration of 515 days because it is the contractor's responsibility to come up with the detailed list of activities that comprises of this duration. Okay, so this will be the contract between the engineer and designer and the client. Now I'll switch back to the PowerPoint. Can you see the PowerPoint?
Not yet.
Now?
Yes, it's loading. Yes. Okay.
So that was a basic feel of the design phase. Okay. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there's a separate schedule that will be provided by the contractor. Okay. Now, you see, maybe you'd have noticed I switch between being the contractor and the consultant. The problem is I'm working as a consultant right now, so most of the time I tend to speak from the consultant point of view. But no worries, I'll try to keep that in mind. Now, the schedule to be provided by the contractor, there are basically two types. First, the tender schedule. During the tendering stage, before the contract is awarded, the contractor offers to complete the project within a stipulated time, okay, as required by the client. And if there are some negotiations happening, that will happen at that point, because once the contract is finalized, the contractor has to construct within that stipulated time. Okay, now the time I've taken here is for the project is 16 months. Okay, so basically 515 days. So the contractor has to construct the entire structure of the building and hand it over within that 515 days. He has now, but this tender schedule, at the tender stage, the discussion goes on whether to finish it within 515 or should we extend it, should we reduce it. But normally that discussion doesn't happen to reduce. It only happens to extend the duration. But once the contract is signed, the contractor submits a planning package where he has the clause 14 program. A clause 14 program is what clause 14 refers to the FIDIC contract, FIDIC 1987 contract forms, okay, where the contractor promises to complete the project within the stipulated time, and he lists out the activities or his plan of execution of the works. Now there'll be an S curve involved, which you'll see later. These are the bare minimum requirements of the planning package. There are still more reporting requirements, the details that are submitted, but I will not get into that. Bare minimum requirements of a planning package. Now, planning package is important because once a planning package is approved, the time of the contractor, the timings of the activities are measured based on this planning package. Okay, so the contractor promises to complete the foundations by this date, the roof slab by this date, the first floor slab by this date. The contractor promises to start the installations, MEP installations by a particular date. All these dates, as you saw earlier, will be listed out when you program the activities, when you prepare a program in Primavera. You will, but by the way, Primavera is just one of the different softwares used. There are many other softwares, but as I said, that's the one which we use here normally. So when you use a project planning software, you'll get a list of activities, and dates will be assigned based on the dependencies. So then you can hold that contractor responsible to that activity and that time frame and that durations and that dates. So the contractor has to provide that early on before he starts with the construction. Now I'll show you an S curve just to get a feel of how the project progresses. Now S curve is very important as from the project point of view, because this shows the rate at which the progress is expected of a project. The orange color represents the progress values, and the gray color represents the cost values or invoicing values or cash flow. Okay. Now this is how the progress is supposed to happen. Ideally, there's a triangle where the 25% of the project completes within the 35%, 33.3% of time. Next 50% of the project completes within next 33% of time, and the final 25% of the project completes within the 33.3% of the time, remaining 33.3% of time. So that is a standard S curve. And if you look at it, you can see the project progress is a very decent one. But if there are spikes somewhere here, then that shows that there is some mistake with the schedule, or there is some anomaly that was not expected. So basically, you use it with project progress values. Okay, and then finally, then there is a cash flow. Now, cash flow is important from the client point of view, because a client requires to know what will be the funding requirements of the project. Now, as per FIDIC 1999, you have to have a client who, the client has to have a funding plan for the project. If the client doesn't find funding halfway through the project, it is the client's mistake, and if any delay happens to the project, the client will be held responsible. Okay, so to arrange the funding, because it's not like the client will have the money ready in their bank accounts. The client will have to source the funding from investors, from banks, etc. So this shows how much funding is required, because this is based on the progress, and the progress directly converts to the amount of work done, and amount of work done translates to cost. What cost will be invoiced at that point of time. So this is an S curve that is prepared, and you can see the monthly distribution of progress values, cost values. There's a defects liability period, which we'll discuss later. Now, extension of time claims is also very important from the project point of view, because you see, this is where you start to analyze when things go wrong. Suppose there are delays from the contractor side or the employer side. Now, how do you accommodate those delays into the project? If the contractor is at fault, what are the things to be done? If the employees that are at fault or engineers at fault, what are the things to be done? These are the aspects of, if suppose the contractor is at fault, the engineer raises a claim against the contractor saying that the project is delayed because of your mistake. You will be penalized at the end of the project, or at the time of completion. We will deduct this much amount from your bank security, okay, or this much amount will be deducted from your progress payments. So because it's contractor's mistake and the employer is losing let's say this project is for 16 months, and the employer is expecting a lot of expecting to start the hospital after 16 months. So an employer has taken loans to start this project. If after the completion of 16 months the project is not completed, employer has a lot of damages. Now this damage employer can claim from the contractor, but of course those terms will be defined in the contract. Right. Now the contractor, on the other hand, finds some problems from the employee, because if some approvals, some clearances are not provided by the employer, and the contractor cannot work at site in any means possible, contractor raises a claim against employer. So what happens is, from the time point of view, extension of time has to be given so that the contractor is not penalized. Okay. Then variations. While executing the project, there could be some factors contributing to changes within the project that was not accommodated earlier before signing the contract. That is meant by variations. Now, what happens is, because the variations also, a lot of time changes, time calculation changes. Then extension of time claims. This is a different area altogether. Forensic delay analysis. Forensic delay analysis happens when you are probably familiar with the term forensic. There's even a Malayalam movie called Forensic. You might have seen it, and maybe you're aware of the term forensic analyst, forensic experts. Now, what do forensic analyst or forensic expert do in real life? You see, normally a forensic analyst examines the dead body of a person just to understand what was the cause of death. Should someone be held responsible? Okay. Here in the project perspective, forensic delay analysis is done by a forensic delay analyst who is trying to find the fault, whose fault it is, because contractor will always try to hide his fault, the employer will always try to hide his fault. So because of whom is the project being delayed? That is what a forensic delay analyst do. And I tell you, my real job here. I'm also a forensic delay analyst. I do forensic delay analysis because without this forensic delay analysis, it is impossible to calculate the variations and EOT claims. Basically, the extension of time claim. The dead body here is the project schedule. You have to just remember that in mind. Okay, now you saw a lot of stuff about project management, but how does this benefit you? You see, you have to understand there is all these 10 knowledge areas contribute to the smartness perspective. Okay, now you're just being smart on how to complete the project as per the requirements. And if you study that 10 knowledge areas properly, you'll get the knowledge to start with stuff and to execute things. But basically, as I said before, you need to have a kind of PhD in smartness. That's how you control everything, because every day you'll be facing a lot of problems. But as a student, how does it benefit you? You know, when you study about integration management, you get a grasp about how things happen in life, in a project, in your academics. Let me tell you, you have a curriculum, curriculum where your entire BTech degree is divided into modules. When I was studying, it was 4 modules per semester. Now, within 4 modules, you have chapters. Within chapters, you have topics. Within topics, you have data. So if you prepare a whole list of items just like that as a work breakdown structure, you see, or if you take a textbook and just you start asking yourself, what does each chapter mean? What does a topic in a chapter mean? If you try to understand that, you'll get a better understanding of the topic, and you'll get an overall view of the topic, and it makes your life very easy, because the data retention is far better because you have a structured item, and that is what basically a planner does. Planner brings about the whole structure. um, a planner tries to find a structure between all the complete chaos. Okay, so this chaos is the data and information floating all around. But when you have a structured approach to things, you are able to finish things properly, conveniently, and most importantly, you don't miss out on any aspect. Okay, time, the work breakdown structure, as I mentioned, your time management skills improve when you have complete work breakdown structure. And rolling wave planning is a very beautiful concept, which I would like you to understand. Rolling, suppose you're going on an excursion, okay, a trip, a 10-day trip. You can either plan for everything right from the start, but then you will be focused on only completing your targets. But when you're going on a trip, what you do is, suppose you're going from here to Ooty, and then from Ooty, and not here per se, from your place, Thrissur to Ooty, and from Ooty to, you're planning to go to Bangalore. You go into Ooty, and then after reaching Ooty, you're adapting to a situation there, and then at that point you decide what are the fun activities there. You ask the people around, and then you plan for things there, and then you execute it. After finishing Ooty, then you go Bangalore. It's like, flow of a wave. You you build up a wave, and then it falls down, and then the next wave takes over. That way you can reduce a lot of pressure on yourself. Okay, because when you have listed out everything together, and things don't go as per the plan, that could actually have more demerits, or that could have a detrimental effect on your morale. Okay, and then we have this time assessment. Yeah, when you do time windows, when you send time windows for your activities, let's say you're studying a subject. Basically, when you prepare for your examination, you have 4 modules. You break it down to chapters, topics. You plan that, okay, if I finish this chapter within half a day, then okay, I'll be able to complete the rest of the topics. If I take more than half a day, I won't be able to complete the rest of the topic. That is actually a time calculation which you are trained. Okay, during the course of your BTech degree, you are being trained to do that without actually telling you. So that is the engineering skill set which you're learning without actual training. That is something what should be made visible to the students there, because you learn to plan your time to complete your exams, to learn to study and to prepare and to give the exams. And then cost factor. Now cost factor comes into play in a different aspect altogether. See, to be the most important person of a project or team or a company, you need to know what is happening cost wise, because everything is run by the cost. So the commercial implications of your activities, of your actions, if it doesn't have, if you don't know how is it going to affect the project and company cost wise, you're at big loss. So start asking yourself, how do I, let's say if you see a building, how much time would have it taken to construct that building, and how much would have that building cost? So from that, then the next step will be to inquire to people around to check if your assessment is right. And then when you go ahead little by little, you understand the details of the project without even you knowing, when you're just hunting down the cost factor. Okay, so be be very keen on the cost element of everything. And procurement wise, the contracts management, which we'll see soon. Risk management, this is one approach which I would like you to understand. You see, normally from your expectations or from your experience as a student, I can tell you, if you're planning for an exam, we normally plan for things like you just prepare a time scale, like half an hour for this, 1 hour for this, 2 hours for this. But as a student, you never normally think, what if I don't complete it? How do I manage things later on if thing doesn't happen this way? Okay. Now, when you are at that level of thinking, then I should tell you that if you are a person who thinks that way, then normally you won't get any back papers, because you are assessing the risk factor of preparation itself. Okay, even in project, you have a beautiful schedule, and you don't just start working on it from day one. You think about the risk element, and you plan that risk into that schedule, so that you think about what are the things that could go wrong, and how should I be prepared upfront to meet all those risk factors. Okay, so that is actually a perspective, that's an approach that you have to build into your character. Next will be the contracts administration. Now, contracts administration is something that you normally don't see during uh, a curriculum. So what? But before I start, Miss Ashwati, is it possible that I can get some extension of time here?
Yes, sir. Yes, we don't have a session following this. We need to spare some time for the question answer. That's it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
You see, so this is how you ask for an extension of time. You send a notice to see if it's possible. Okay, but yes, the one mistake I did here, and as a planner, I shouldn't have done it. I should have planned for everything together. You know, with the entire sequence. I should have timed each slide. I should have given proper timing for each slide. That is my mistake. Yes, but it happens. You see, but normally what happens is when you start explaining things, you feel that okay, something more has to be explained. Okay, so we'll come to the EOT and notices later on. Claims. Before going into what a contract is, I like to tell you about what a claim is, because we'll start from a different point altogether. Now, maybe you have heard about recessions that have happened in 2008. Maybe you might be aware that there is a recession looming because of all this pandemic and stuff. Now, when recession happens, all the industries go down. I mean, that's not true. Not all the industries. Most of the industries go down. But there is one industry that actually thrives, and that is the accounting session, the claims department, the delays and forensic delay analysis department, because there are mistakes happened. there would be mistakes happen during the execution of project. Now you have to find someone culpable for those mistakes. Whose mistake was it because of which the project is in the bad shape? You find that person culpable and you penalize that person. So this activity kicks up when things go wrong. Okay. So, but the good part of this claims department is when you understand the nature of the claims, you can actually do a risk management based on the claims, which is why I said earlier, understanding the forensic delay analysis part has actually helped me become a better planning engineer, because now I am able to plan things better for a project, and I'm able to review the contractor schedule better. And also, yes, why did I state a disclaimer? Maybe you remember I had stated a disclaimer at the beginning of the presentation. That is contract administration lesson number 1. You have to know what you're going to get into. Okay. And what if things go wrong? You have to be very pessimistic at that point. What if things go wrong? I am taking a class to my understanding, I'm taking a class to students, but this is being shared on a public platform, and there will be a lot of questions raised because of this. So I mentioned the disclaimer earlier just so that someone says that I had mentioned, I had said something wrong, or I did something wrong. I shouldn't be doing it this way. You see, I can always get out of this situation now saying that, see, this is meant for students. This is meant for a better understanding. This is an introduction. This really doesn't, this is only a small representation. The whole bunch of data cannot be compressed into such a small segment. Okay, now we'll get into what a contract is. We'll get into what a contract is. Now, a contract, you see, in simple terms, is a promise made by two parties, mutual promise that is made by two parties that is legally viable, or that is enforceable by law. Okay. Now we are dealing with construction contracts here, so there are two parties involved, the employer and the contractor, predominantly, who get into a contract that is called the main contract. Okay. And this contract is now, how do you define the terms of the contract? How do you control the contract? How do you write the entire thing in such a short span of time? To do that, see, it's difficult to reinvent the wheel every time you have a contract. For that you need to have a template or a format which basically takes care of the rights and responsibilities of both the parties entering into a construction contract, and then at the same time be legal and be very professional, and also be feasible. Okay, so that is why we use a standard form of contract, and most used standard form of contract in the AEC industry is FIDIC. You'll see what FIDIC is later on. Now, there's a third party involved here, which I mentioned as the engineer. Okay, the engineer, as I said earlier, if you want to remember the role of the engineer, just think of him as the referee. Okay, the engineer is basically the consultant, also referred to as a consultant of the project at some point. But the engineer decides, engineer has the authority to decide what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, whether the contractor is doing right or wrong, and what is in best interest of the project. It is this person acts as a referee and decides all these factors. Okay. Now, there is a difference between the term an engineer and the engineer. The engineer is, as I said, I mentioned earlier, is a contractually defined term. And when you are when it is contractually defined, there are a lot of conditions to be met to qualify as the engineer. If you fail in any of them, you could be penalized for it. You could be held liable, and that could have very devastating implications of the project on your career also. Now, an engineer is just any other engineer within the project. It could be an engineer from the contractor, the consultant, or the client, any representative engineer. Okay, this has got no contractual definition as such. Now this represents the relationship, general relationship between a contractor, employer, and engineer. Now, this is the main contract or the construction contract. Everyone is controlled by this main contract. Okay, and when the the engineer enters into a contract with the employer called the consultancy contract. Okay, which there will be roles and responsibilities referring to this main contract. Okay, so this is the driving thing. But of course, the payment to the engineer and all from the employer will be driven by this, not by this. But the entire payment of the contractor is driven by this contract. See, basically, the concept of contract is the employer has a requirement, a business case, okay, and employer promises to pay a particular amount to get that work done, okay, and this contract enforces that. Now, the contractor, on the other hand, offers or tenders his offer. Contractor says that, okay, yes, I'm willing to do that job. I promise to do that job in exchange of that money. Okay, so both these people enter into an agreement, and this agreement, when signed together, becomes a contract. And of course, there are a lot of components of the contract. You see, the contract has to be legal, first of all. Now, the one example I can give you is, suppose you constructing a building, you enter into contract with a person, you want your house to be built, you enter into contract with the contractor. That's normal, that's legal. Okay, that is legally viable and that can be enforced by law. But suppose you're planning to rob a bank, imagine, hypothetically, and you get accomplices with you. Okay, you form a team and you enter into an agreement with each other that, okay, what the loot will be distributed equally, or since I'm the one planning, I need more. You have 45, 25, 35, whatever it is. You write an agreement, all of them sign together. That is not enforceable by law because that thing is illegal right from day one. Okay, so that's it. And there has to be mutual agreement that yes, there will be clauses within the contract saying that mutually agree. And as I said before, you're providing this, I'm providing this. Both the parties are bringing something to the table for exchange. Consideration, yes. Consideration is what, again, unilateral or bilateral. Bilateral, it's the understanding that both the parties are benefited from the contract in some way. Okay. Now, the parties entering into the contract also should be competent parties. Maybe you would have heard of someone going bankrupt or filing for bankruptcy or filing for solvency. Okay. Now, that person cannot enter into a contract because he is not a competent person. He has no assets and he cannot guarantee anything. Right. So, and also this person have to be in full has to be who should have proved his competency to enter into a contract technically and in all aspects basically. And there is a genuine assent. Now, someone cannot point a gun at your head and ask to sign a contract because there is no genuine assent there. You have to enter into a contract at your free will. This is a component of contract. I explained this in so detail because this is going to help you in later on understanding the contract. You see, even because even an offer letter forms a part of a contract. Now, basically, there are different types of contracts: FIDIC, NEC, JCT, and bespoke. I'm not going to talk about these two. FIDIC is our point of discussion, and bespoke basically means custom-made contracts. Contracts that are custom made by either the client or for the situation, which doesn't have any reference to any normal standards or forms. Okay, FIDIC is the short form, it's the abbreviation for Federation International des Ingenieurs Conseils. Okay, it's based in Switzerland. Now, to understand that, I have written this thing down. What FIDIC is basically, see, in every country, there is an independent consulting engineers organization. Okay. Now, independent consulting engineers organization in every country. Now, so for that, first you have you need to be independent. You shouldn't be associated to any cause, and you have to have, there has to be a national association representing the country, and from this national association, there are these national associations of different countries form together an international federation forming the FIDIC. So what basically it does is, you see, as I said before earlier, in the case of project management institute provides a lot of knowledge and guidelines on how to manage a project. FIDIC has a standard form of contract. You take the standard form of contract and you tweak it with mutual agreement, because every project is unique. So you tweak their contract, you add some clauses of your own to customize it to your own requirement, but there is a standard part, there is a customized part, and those two parts together becomes your main contract. The main contract, see, it's normally it's meant, it is called the FIDIC Red Book, but there are different colors of book based on the use. For oil and gas, I think it is a silver book. Now it is FIDIC was founded in 1913. The first Red Book came out in 1957, and this is the most favorable, or let's say the most used one till now. But yes, there has been advancements in 1999 and 2017 where they have changed the structure. They've added more roles and responsibilities. Okay, so but this is favored by most clients till now. But I cannot tell you the reasons openly like this. Let's keep that for another discussion. Now, let me give you a feel of the FIDIC index. Okay. Can you see the screen? I have to check if.
Yes, but I still see the presentation.
Okay. Now?
Yes.
Okay. See the contents of FIDIC, general conditions of contract. Okay. You have definitions for each and everything. How is it? What is what is an engineer, who is an engineer, and who is an engineer's representative, what are the duties and what is the authority of engineer, and engineer to act impartially, that is built into the contract. And then you see the language, the laws, the priority of contract document. If there are any complications within, confusions within the priority of documents, what is the sequence to be followed, general obligations of the contractor, what should be the method of construction, what should be the contract agreement, what should the contractor should have understood the sufficiency of a tender before entering into contract. Then not what happens if there are physical obstructions or conditions. You see, all these things have already been worked out. Okay, all you have to do is understand that, and if required, tweak it to your requirement. But that requires a lot of knowledge. It's an when I say tweak, it is actually an oversimplification, because you need to have a very good understanding of the implication of adding just one word or deleting just one word from the contract, because all the clauses are linked to each other. The numbers you see here are the clause numbers. So when the contractor submits a program, he refers to the clause 14.1 of the FIDIC contracts 1987. Okay, and if there is an extension of time claims, he refers to if there is a delay, if there's a delay, you normally refer to 41.1 or clause 41 as such. As per clause 41, we notify you that there is a delay in the project, and if you didn't rectify it, you will be held culpable. Okay, so that is how you write delays. I mean, I'm just saying it. That's not how you write a letter, but that should give you a gist of the concept. And procedure for claims detailed here. Okay, so then measurement, how the quantities have to be taken, how are the works to be measured, what are the different measurement methods, how the breakdown of lump sum items should happen. So basically, how the contract is, how the project should progress. This is the law. Contract is a law that written agreement is this is what defines how the project should progress, and it is referred back when things go wrong. This is just the index. You can download it online, and I suggest you have a look on it. Look at it. Okay. So now, can you see my screen, the presentation?
We still, yes, we see this presentation.
Okay. So now I'm not going to get into the details of the contents of the board. Okay. What I want to tell you is, as students, all you have to understand is there's a tendering procedure. Okay. I listed that up later on. So all these things have to be transferred as part of the tender for the contractor to understand what the project is about, to understand the scope of the project, what he should be doing, okay, and the contractor prices for that tender, or prices for that invitation. We'll see that later. Now, being a contracts and commercial manager, before getting into the details, the advantages of being a contracts and commercial manager is, as I said, you see, this is more of a corporate role, and the CEO listens to the commercial manager a lot. Of course, there are many other departments, but this person is responsible for he's even actually responsible for the cost control, or cost savings of the whole project. And when you are in a position to control the cost of the project, you become the most important person of the project. Okay, so this but requires some serious certifications, because you need to have a deep understanding of the laws, the regulations, how things happen in a project, and how, because everything is done so officially, you need to understand how the change control process happens, how different parties could be at disadvantage if due to some mistakes. So you need to have an LLM or master's in MSc in construction law to be a good contracts manager. But yes, of course, this does not ensure you that you can be a commercial contracts manager. This just gives you the knowledge required to be a contracts and commercial manager. But more importantly, you should look into these certifications. These are not actually certifications, these are memberships. MRICS stands for Member of Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. Now, and MCIARB means Member of Chartered Institute of Arbitration. Now, I'd really suggest you have a look into this, because the advantage of having a professional membership and professional acknowledgement, professional certification is that, you see, when you join a company as a project manager, or let's say a contracts manager, you will have a lot of knowledge that cannot be verified by the people in the company. Okay, suppose you claim to be a commercial manager. How does the company verify you that you are a good commercial manager, that you have the required skill set to work as a commercial contracts manager? It is impossible for the people to verify that based on just on the CV or the projects they have worked with. So someone more knowledgeable than you has to sit and review your knowledge, has to sit and study, or has to test your skills and knowledge. Okay, there are professional organizations that do, and once you get certified by this professional organizations, it is easier for employers to hire these people. And I'll tell you, when you're certified by professional organizations, your salary scale is just shoots over the roof. Okay, maybe we can discuss on that later, but just give you a glimpse of what will happen. Now, the skills, minimum skill set that's required, of course, you need to have a very good understanding and very good command over the English language. Because, yeah, of course, contracts are done in English here, mostly. And cost aspect we did discuss. Negotiation skills, inevitable. You need to negotiate with the contractor, subcontractors, even your own team, to get things done to the best interest of the project and the organization. And as I said, when you're contracts and commercial manager, you'll be working at the corporate level, so you'll be enjoying different other benefits than being working at a site. Now, we are entering into the final phase. Now, contracts administration is, see, as I said, it's difficult to compress the whole thing into a half an hour or 45-minute session. But what I can give you is a brief outline how the process unfolds. So if you just understand the definitions or what these items are, you'll get an understanding what the process is. Okay. Now the technical specifications are formed at the end of the detailed design. Okay, and this will be provided by the designers because this controls the quality at which the project has to be completed. This controls the quality entirely. So how the what is the quality requirements of the project is will be mentioned in the technical specifications, and these technical specifications are taken by the QS, and he prepares an invitation to the bidders, okay, prospective, which he finds the people who finds would suit will be suitable to do the contract. Now there's a pre-qualification of contracts. Some companies have contractors who are pre-qualified. That is basically when you have a list of contractors in the market and you discuss with them, and you see, it's basically, to summarize it, it's like having a CV. Yeah, if you have a CV, what do you do with a list of CVs? You segregate that CV into categories. Like let's say that's what an HR does. Suppose an HR department receives a bunch of CVs, and let's say hundreds of CVs. The HR personnel segregates into different categories. This is suitable for this kind of project. This is suitable for this kind of project. This is suitable for this kind of project. And then when the project requirement is there, that HR person directly approaches this list of CVs, that segregated list of CVs. Pre-qualification is more or less of that concept. But to be pre-qualified, you have to come into, you have to propose yourself. You have to send, as a company, you have to send your your profile, and the client has to accept it. There is a lot of procedure that happens in between. But pre-qualification simply means that there's a list prepared. So whenever there is a project requirement, client can directly refer to this list. Client doesn't have to scout the entire market for companies. And then, yeah, the QS, as I said, they issues the 4 volumes of the technical specifications. What are the 4 items I said? Administrative documents, technical specifications, bill of quantities, and drawings as part of the tender invitation. Now, what happens is the prospective contractor studies this invitation and decides on whether to proceed with the contract or not. If he decides not to proceed with the contract, he says that, okay, he simply regrets. He says that, okay, this project is not feasible from my point of view. We regret that we cannot proceed with this. Thank you for your invitation. Please do consider us in future projects also. Because maybe the contractor's hand is full with other projects. Maybe the contractor doesn't have enough personnel, but of course, personnel can always be acquired. Maybe the contractor doesn't find that contract feasible as per his goals. Okay, his company visions and mission and stuff. So he can regret. Or normally, what happens is the contractor studies the entire contract, lists out, does a risk management of his own, does a budgeting, does a cost calculation, and see what is the minimum price at which he can complete the contract, and then tenders his offer or gives his offer, priced offer to the client. Okay. Now the client studies this, and yeah, I think we skipped 1 or 2 steps. Now, if at all the contractor has some doubts with with the invitation, with the components of the invitation, the prospective contractor refers back, or let's say the bidder refers back to the client asking for clarifications, and the client issues tender clarifications. And now with this clarification, the contractor, the bidder should be in a better position to do a better cost assessment and risk assessment. Finally, they tender their bids with the priced bill of quantities. Okay, there will be items listed out and price will be mentioned corresponding to each item. And the tender opening process is a very important procedure in itself, because this has to be there are a lot of prerequisites, but all the there will be deadline given for contractors to submit their bids, and the opening is done simultaneously on all bids, and after that comes the evaluation of this techno-commercial tenders. Okay. Now, once these evaluations are done, again there occurs a shortlisting or ranking of the contractors. Like, this person is feasible, this person is not, and listing as per price, listing as per feasibility, listing as per technical feasibilities and stuff. Okay, and their past performance. There will be different kind of rankings and listings. This is called tender analysis report that will be submitted to the client. And now the client or the employer goes through this report in detail and calls the prospective contractors, because let's say we'll talk from the cost point of view. Suppose a contractor, the client has a budget of 100 million dirhams, and the contractor, different contractors quotes to the scale of 90 million, 95 million, 105 million, 110 million. So the client will always be inclined towards the 90 and 95 million quotes. Okay, but sometimes it happens that these people have missed out something very important, and that shows their incompetence, and maybe the 100 million person will have some serious background, serious expertise in that, and maybe because of that expertise he was able to take into consideration some risk factors which made the risk contract value more. So the client invites all these people and conducts techno-commercial negotiations how to bring the cost values down. The client will not disclose his budget, but the discussion will be done on a basis that what is the minimum offer you can provide. Okay, and finally the client zeroes in on an offer. Then they will be submitting the revised offer, and that will be accepted, and letter of acceptance is provided, and then the contract is signed. This is a brief sequence of the procedure. And this is considered pre-contract because all the items before the contract signing is listed here. When I say all, it is not an exhaustive list, but the basic items. Now, post-contract, once a contract is signed, then this is a sequence that is followed. You see, the contract is signed, but when does the project start? As per the clause 41 of FIDIC contracts, the contractor has to send, the engineer has to send a letter of commencement, okay, a notice of commencement. From that, and the project is deemed to start from that point, okay. And the duration of the project would have been negotiated earlier. Once it is signed, that would have been agreed upon, and that will be the time for completion. And from that commencement date, the completion date will be assessed, okay. And then the contractor has to start the works side. The contractor has to submit a performance security, because if he doesn't perform as per his promise, the client should not be at risk or loss. So if the contractor does not perform as per his promise in the contract, the client will take or encash this check, okay. And then I don't know if you are familiar with the concept of performance security, but to explain a little bit more about it, let's say you are booking a ticket online, okay, a flight ticket online, and there's a gateway of booking. Okay, now you're using your credit card. Okay, your banker is the guarantor. Now you book a ticket, you receive the OTP, you type for the OTP online, and what happens is this: your money will be deducted from your bank account, and it will be held by the banker as a promise to be paid to the person issuing you ticket. Okay, flight ticket, airline agency. For some reason, if the ticket is not issued, this money can be taken back. So that is the concept. That's the concept. But or if you plan to, sometimes there's a window at which you can cancel it. Okay, so when you cancel it within that window, you'll get back the money. So that is the concept of performance security. Performance security is provided when just to make the client safe, so that he is not losing an opportunity just because he is entering into contract with a particular person. Losing an opportunity because, see, as I said before, there could be a lot of prospective contractors, but suppose I'm going ahead with one person and discarding all of them, and I'm spending a lot of time and money, and I'm losing a lot of time. It is impossible to get back the time, but I don't want to injure more damage, so I'm holding him responsible. That is the concept. Now, same goes with advance payment guarantee. The contractor receives an advance payment based on the guarantee a bank provides, just like what I said before. And then clause 14 program and cash flow is provided as the contractor's promise that this is how I want to complete the project, and this is how I'm planning to sequence the activities. This is how I'm planning to time the activities. This is the amount of resources I'm going to use in it, and this is the cash flow that will be required from your side. Okay, now this has to be submitted and approved by the consultant and the client. And then breakdown of lump sums, we'll not get into that. Certification of works complete. Yeah. So once this is certified, the approved, the program is approved, the progress is measured from that program. Okay. And if there is any delay in it, as I said before, either of the two parties could be held responsible. That is the beauty of it. If there is a problem, someone is responsible, either the contractor or the employer. And in some situations, neither of them. There could be external situations. That is called force majeure. Okay, acts of God. Like something, people are trying to establish that this pandemic is a force majeure, so that they reduce their losses. Okay, by terminating the contract. So that is the thing. You have someone will be held responsible for the delays. Now this, if once the people are held responsible, that person will be penalized, unless it is as mentioned earlier, neither of the two parties, the third scenario. Then certification of works completed. Now how will the contractor get paid? You see, as the progress occurs, the contractor, there is work happening at site. Now this work will be inspected by the engineers of the consultant, or will be inspected by the engineer and certified that this much amount is completed. Okay, and corresponding to that item in the BOQ, he can claim a percentage of amount. So that means, suppose in 1 month the contractor plans to complete 7.9% of progress, he achieves only 5.6%. He gets it certified that he has achieved 5.6%, and 5.6% of the total amount of the project value is transferred to the contractor's account once the certificate is approved by the employer. That is the certification procedure. Certification payment application is done by the contractor based on progress, and payment certification is done with retentions by the employer. Now, then there is variations administration. Now, during the course of the project, as there will be changes to the initial plan because of some conditions. In one project, what we faced was the project was planned for 4 floors, okay, uh, 2 basement plus ground plus 4 floors. But this floor, a number of floors got increased to 5 because the client wanted to, and the client was ready to pay. Now that is considered as a variation. Now this variation, how do we incorporate? This is not something we planned earlier. People sit and negotiate. Uh, See, when the client instructs that, okay, I want an extra floor, the contractor sends a notice, a letter, official notification that this is different from the earlier plan. So yes, I will require more money, and the client accepts it, and that becomes an approved variation. Now there will be cost and time impact for this variation, for this extra floor. And delays, of course, we've been discussing. What happens during delay processes? See, suppose the client or the engineer identifies that the contractor is delaying the project. Let's say in a situation where okay, the contractor on today's 1st of August, the contractor has to start the work on the 1st of August, but the contractor has not mobilized completely. He he had to obtain certain approvals from certain authorities which he has not approved till now, which he has not got till now, and the letter of commencement has been sent. The project time has started. The time has started ticking, and it is the contractor's mistake that he did not get it because it was his responsibility to get. So it is contractor's mistake, and the client or the employer, the engineer sends a notice saying that, Mr. Contractor, I I think you're going to delay this, or as per my assessment, this is a delay that has happened in your activity, and if you didn't mitigate this, you will be held liable. So sending a notice is very important. Now, in real life also, you might have heard about notices. In Malayalam, we say vakil notice. Okay, vakil notice got written down. Now, it is the same concept, because before attacking you, it is before attacking you directly, I'm going to tell you, see, I'm going to do this. If you didn't find a solution, it is your mistake. If you didn't find a solution to this, I'm going to attack you. Okay, that is the whole concept of notice. And in my experience, it is this notice that makes a contract so lively and so active and so fun, because it'll be firing missile after missile against each other. You'll be issuing letter after letter when you find a delay, and finally all these letters are compiled together, and then that is how you understand the root cause of the problem. That is how you find you hold a person culpable. And it is mandatory as per the contract that you send a notice before attack before doing something serious. Okay. Payment adjustment. Suppose there is a calculation error during the progress at site, and it later it comes clear that there is progress that has been achieved more. Let's say slab casting was done. The first floor slab casting was done, or the MEP installations had to be done, but the installation was done, but the clearance to close the ceiling was not provided. But the contractor closed the ceiling, and there is a payment milestone towards the ceiling closure. Okay, I'm talking about the MEP installations within the ceiling. So this, if it was wrongly certified, the engineer can rectify it in the following. Of course, it is the engineer's mistake that he did not check it properly. But if something is later on at a later stage, if something is identified, that payment is provided in excess that can be deducted at a later stage. Now, how to conclude a project. You see, in the project, as the project progresses, there'll be a lot of testing and commissionings, and after testing and commissioning, there'll be certificates issued that engineer clears. Okay, it's a quality requirement. Engineer says that okay, this is certified to be complete. This process is certified to complete. The fire alarm system is certified to be complete. The electrical installation certified to be complete. MEP systems, the pressure testing has been done and certified to be complete. After all the certificates, the contractor compiles it and applies for a building completion certificate, and after that applies for a taking over certificate. Okay, and now a taking over certificate is provided by the employer, and that is how the project is completed. Now, at this point, project is complete, but again, the contractor is liable for any defects that happen after the taking over, after the client takes over. Suppose you're constructing a hospital. After the hospital has been constructed, the contractor hands the project over to you. Okay, and you're the client, you takes it over, but you find there are some details, some missings, some items missed out, or some faulty installations. You send a notice to the contractor to come and rectify it. So that rectification happens over a particular span of agreed amount of time. That is called defect liability period, and the contractor basically will do that free of cost, and based on what is the um, agreed term. If it's payable or not, that will be agreed within the contract. So how do you benefit as a student from all this knowledge about contracts management? You see, even a marriage is a contract. You enter into a marriage contract. You sign when you it's a legally binding thing. When you sign in front of the authorities that you wish to marry a person, that both of you are both have rights and responsibilities that have to be performed. Okay, I'm not telling you about contracts management just because you have to get married. I'm just telling you because there are contracts coming in all walks of life, but you have to be keen, you have to be aware what is happening. And if a person, let's say a husband, is treating the wife badly, or the wife is treating the husband badly, that person can go to the court and say that this person is not treating me well, I need to annul this marriage. Okay, so that's about marriage. And any contract, if you house construction contract or any contract, you can terminate if it is not favorable for you, and if the other party does not behave according to the rules listed out in the contractual clauses. Now there are entry conditions. There are this is what I've been focusing on. There are exit conditions. If one person is injured, not don't take it per se. Don't take it the literal meaning of physical injury. Injured, it could be financial, emotional, physical. Uh, if either of the parties injured by the actions of the other person, that person can claim damages. Okay, and that is the exit condition. And rights and duties. So when you enter into contract, you are also having a lot of rights and duties that you should perform. If you didn't perform a particular duty, you will be held liable. You will be the one paying up for your mistakes. Okay, now I would like to tell you about an incident from my life. I received a long time ago, I received an offer letter from a company after a series of discussions, after a series of let's say interviews. Okay, now what happened is, during the interview, the interviewer, we negotiated to a particular amount of salary. We closed, zeroed in a particular figure. But when the offer letter was sent, that offer letter reflected a figure which was very low, which was lesser than the negotiation that had happened. Okay, so I alarmed the authorities. I got in touch with the person with whom I had the interview, and I told that person that, okay, this is not what we agreed upon. This is unprofessional because we agreed upon something else, and you are sending me a lower offer. I cannot accept it. Okay, that person apologized for the mistake and actually revised that offer and sent it back to me for me to sign it. So this is a contract. Okay, you are entering into a contract with that person, employer, with a company, because you are offering your services, your time, and that employer is offering you money in form of salary. Later on, I came to know that some people in that company had actual problems because they signed the wrong figure so it was a bad thing done by that company, because it wasn't a mistake, it was intentional. Okay, so you could be taken advantage of in different ways when you enter into contract. And what the problem is, once you sign on the agreement, you cannot take it to the law saying that we had a negotiation earlier and that was the thing, that was what I agreed upon, this is what has been provided. You have to know, when you agree, you have to verify that what this is as per the negotiation or not, because the law said it was your responsibility to check what you signed up for. Okay, so that is one experience from my side. And with when problems happen, when recession and when stuff happen like that, people tend to be greedy. A lot of companies tend to be greedy, and they tend to take a lot of undue advantage of ignorance of contracts, because once the site is signed, it is enforceable by law and you cannot complain because you have to verify it. You have the more obligation to verify the things you sign. And finally, about as the signing authority, you see, an engineering degree comes with a lot of responsibilities. You might think that you have given a lot of exams, you have submitted your assignments, and now you have to go and learn things from the real world to start practicing. But what you don't realize is that degree actually is a promise given by the institution and by the university to someone else, that this person whom I'm awarding the degree has certain specific skill set to work. Okay, so and a lot of jobs with the engineering degree, you are getting a lot of authority. Money could be made based on your signature, because if you are joining a company even if you don't know what is happening, you're signing something as authorized by an engineer. Payments could be transacted, money could be transacted just based on that signature. So you have to understand before you sign, where you sign, what are the implications, cost technical and legal implications of your signature, because an engineer is not a very uh, punitive or trivial designation. An engineer is a very, very important designation. The problem is, we kind of tend to um, you see undervalue or underestimate the value of being an engineer because of all the trolls that's happening around the social media. But that is not true. So you have to understand your value. Okay, so with that, yes, I conclude my session. Thank you very much for your kind patience. It has been a wonderful session for me. I'm not sure how it has been for you. I really need some feedback from your end, how it was. I know it did stretch out a little bit, but I hope this, if this is saved as a video, even if it's saved as a video, this could help you later on. Okay. So I'm open for questions.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. We already have some feedback from in the chat box, which says the session was really wonderful. Okay. So I need not thank you in that way. You already have right feedback from the attendees. Can you see that?
Yeah. Two questions, I
Yes.
think.
Yes. And the question answers, we have two questions. Oh, okay. So we have a session starting at 2:30. So I think we've
Lot of time.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's what. So you see,
Okay.
this is the risk I had actually planned into.
Okay.
I told you there could be there's this possibility. So what I've done is
Uh-huh.
I have started just today morning. I just opened up a Facebook page
Okay.
just so that people watching this video now or later on can get back to me. It's called Mutual Mentorship Club.
Okay.
It's it's basically intended to get in touch with me, and I'm trying to bring a lot of friends into this. People from different aspects of engineering and other even managerial positions, so that you can ask questions, you can get answers. At least if you're not able to get answers, if we are not able to provide answers, we can give you guidance on where to look for answers, which is actually more important than getting the the what is that, the ready-made answers. And also it is also intended for people, working engineers, to give back to the society, because like what I'm doing right now, it's a non-profit event, and I feel good because I'm getting a chance to do something. I'm putting my experience of the last 12 years to good use. And actually today is 1st of August. Today is the 12th anniversary of
Oh,
I started my first job on 1st August 2008. So yeah, it's actually giving back to society. So this I would actually I would really want you to use it, make good use of it. And maybe I can show you the page, just so that you're familiar with that. I just made it just today morning. It's fresh. Can you see this?
yes, yes, I can see this. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Ashwati.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the
Thank you,
session.
sir. Thank you, sir. Yeah, that was a wonderful session, and it was a detailed session. Actually, we had some two questions in the question answer, but since we are running short of time, we have to skip them. Okay.
No problem.
Yeah.
No problem.
Okay. So
You can
this
get
is
in touch with me through Professor Vimal also. Not a problem. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so that was the last session of our fourth international webinar series conducted by the Mechanical Engineering Department. And this session, winding up this session without mentioning some special names would be incomplete. And let me get into the task of vote of thanks. First of all, I'd like to thank our principal, Dr. Joske Jacob, for his sincere support, and also our head of the department, Francis P.A., for his support throughout the sessions. We also like to thank Mr. Johns Abraham for organizing the whole session, and Mr. Vimal N.A., Ritesh, and Nitin P.K. As I said, there's some interruption from home, sorry. And we also have Mr. Nitin VK, who brought in such wonderful speakers on this webinar series. And I would also like to thank Mr. Antonio for his wonderful marketing that was done for this international series. And a special mention to our IT support, Mr. Mohammed Shafi, for his sincere effort and all time he has spent being with us. And last but not the least, all other faculty members of Mechanical Engineering Department, as well as Universal Engineering College, for their full support in making this whole event a grand success. It would be incomplete again if I don't mention all the attendees and participants who have been with us throughout this webinar series. And once again, thanking you, Mr. Gokul, for your time here spent. You spent 2 hours, so peacefully and patiently. Thanks a lot for this.
Thank you.
See you once again. Thank you. Yes, we'll
Thank
get
you.
in touch to you through your Facebook channel. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all once again. The e-certificates would be provided to you through your emails in 2 days' time. Okay. The feedback forms are there in the chat box, both in the YouTube link as well as in the Zoom link. Thank you all once again. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
So I can leave meeting now.
Yes, sir. Yes. Okay. Yeah. See you.